How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Samantha Christine, and today I'm here to take you through an at-home printmaking project. So you'll only need a few materials for this project, and I'm going to try to use materials that you can find at your local store or at your house. So this should be something that almost everyone will be able to do, and I'm very excited to get started. I wanted to first show you the materials that we will be using and an example before we get started. So behind me I have a sheet of foam board. You can get this at any store, I think, Walgreens, CVS, anything local. I use it sometimes to paint over top of as a harder surface, but you can also cut little squares out. So I've had my squares here, and this was one I cut out earlier. I wanted to make sure that I tested my materials before I spent a lot of time drawing the image I wanted. So I took a pencil once I had this foam board and I pushed hard on it, and I just did a couple lines, and then those lines became indents into the foam. And that's why you want to make sure that you're using a foam board, or styrofoam plates even work really well, because as you push on them you will create an indent, and that indent is what's going to hold your image. As you ink it, the ink will only sit on the top, and then those lines will be farther away. And then this was the image I started with, but once those lines and you print it, those lines start to show up as you're drawing. So we can see that the lines I started with here, I was able to press it on to my paper, and then when I lifted it back up like a stamp, I had my image revealed on my sheet of paper. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up my ink real quick. I wanted to give you a small demonstration or an example before I go ahead and get started, and I will meet you back here in just a moment. Some materials that you'll need for today's print is going to be an ink of some kind, so I will be using block printing ink. Now, if you don't have an ink, you can also do this with a tempera paint. Tempera paints are going to be a little bit thicker, so they will hold like the ink will. I would not advise using an acrylic paint. They tend to be a little bit too liquidy, and they will just close up the lines that we have in the drawing. I also have my cup of water so that I can keep my brush just slightly damp, and then of course my pen or my pencil, whichever I am using to draw my image and push my lines into my foam. So here I have my styrofoam or my foam board. This was a flower I drew earlier, but I didn't like it, so we're gonna do it again. And I am going to stick with just an easy drawing at first. I'm still kind of practicing. So maybe getting some leaves. Oh, need to get the top of the flower. And then once you have your drawing done, go back in with the pen, or if you're gonna continue to push hard with your pencil, go back and push hard on the lines that you have drawn, and then once those indents are in there, we can go ahead and switch gears and start inking these images. All right, once you have your lines traced and you have some of those grooves placed in, I'm going to wet my sponge brush, get some of that tempera paint or that ink on there, and I want to start applying this. Now, I don't want to push really hard with it, but you want to make sure that there is a nice thick layer of ink or your tempera paint on the surface. You can already see how my lines are kind of not filling in. They're staying nice and traced out or unpainted. They aren't filling in very much. And now we want to make sure that we have enough of this ink on here so that our image comes up, and that the places that are inked are nice and really dark, and that it's not kind of like cloudy or uneven. And once you think you have enough on there, make sure that it looks even. Once again, we don't want to do a print and have it not show up. So I have that inked up. And now for the actual printing process. All right, so I am again printing into my notebook. I have my drawing or my print here, and I have an option to either stamp it onto the piece of paper like this, or I can hold it or sit it down and then flip the paper on top. So I can either fold it over top like this, or I can hold it and face it down. I am going to press my paper, and so I'm going to take one sheet, I'm going to pull it over, and I want to make sure that my paper doesn't move. And I can use something like a small jar of anything you have around you and kind of press using the side to make sure that all of the areas on that foam board got pressed and that all of that ink is going to be able to pull up. And get all your corners. And now this is going to be the back of the print, so it's okay that my fingerprints are getting here. All right, I hope this one turned out. Once you pull it apart and lift it up, you should be able to reveal your image. So I will be going ahead and doing a second image with you guys. My last print is drying, it's off to the side, but I wanted to go ahead and do it one more time to show you how easy it is to quickly do multiple prints and that you can print these multiple times. So I will be doing this second one now, and maybe I'll draw something a little bit different. I could do something maybe a little abstract. Maybe a house on the top of a hill, and it's going to be very loose and fun, very abstract. All right, so that's gonna be my new drawing, and I'm gonna trace that with my pen now. Once I have my lines pressed and I have those grooves really nice and deep in there, I will start inking this one and show you how to do multiple prints of the same image. All right, again, I have my lines pressed and they are ready, and I'm going to go back in with my slightly damped brush and apply some of that ink. Making sure that it's a nice even layer of this ink. We don't want to lose any of our image. Okay, so I think I have a good, nice, level application of ink. And I'm going to bring my book back down so that I can do a second print. I'm gonna move that away. And again, I'm going to press my paper instead of stamping it. So I will put that down, I will lay my paper on it, and I will go ahead and start rubbing my container. If I want to use my hand, I can use my fists. I just want to make sure that every corner, every side, even the center is nice and pressed on. I want to lift up as much ink as I can, going over all four edges and four corners. All right, and again, when you separate, you will have your image. Oh, it's kind of spooky looking. Kind of reminds me of Halloween a little bit. And you can see when comparing or not when comparing, but when looking at this print, you can see one side held so much more ink, and I probably could have added a little bit extra ink on that far side, but that's something that you learn and see as you're working on these. I went ahead and I just added another coat of ink to this because I want to try out a second print. So I am going to, I have this one to the side, that was my first one, and I am going to do the stamping method. This is the last print I'll do with you. On the last two, I went ahead and I pressed the paper, and this time I'm going to stamp the actual foam onto the sheet of paper. And I can take this and do the same thing, making sure that I rub consistently all over the entire surface. So you can see how one option was to lay the image flat, put your paper on top, and then lift the paper. And then you can also do this method where you just stamp or press the foam board or your image directly onto your sheet of paper and rub it out from there. And now I'm going to lift this up and let's see if my print looks any better. Okay. So when comparing the two of these, we can see a very big difference. We can see on one side of this print how dark it was compared to how light it was and how I didn't have a lot of paint or a lot of my ink. And on this side, kind of the reverse. I had much more ink on this side and a little less. But you can see how you can make multiple prints at once using a printmaking method. All right, well, that's all for me today. We did have a lot of fun making some really cute abstract little prints that we have, and then again our double from the last print. But you can see how easy this is. All you have to do is kind of make sure you have that tempera paint. You can apply it with that sponge brush, and we can use something as simple as foam board or styrofoam plates to make these. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you find inspiration from these projects. Again, this was Samantha Christine. Until next time, I will be back with more at-home lessons and projects.